Briarwood Asylum had stood abandoned for decades, its crumbling walls a grim reminder of its dark past. The townspeople avoided it, sharing stories of the patients who had suffered within its cold, stone halls. They said the place was cursed, that no one who entered ever returned. One stormy night, a group of thrill-seekers decided to explore the asylum, lured by tales of the supernatural. Among them was James, a skeptic who dismissed the stories as mere folklore. But as they approached the asylum, even he felt a growing sense of dread. The iron gates creaked open with a gust of wind, revealing the overgrown courtyard. The group hesitated before stepping inside, their flashlights flickering ominously. The asylum loomed above them, its windows like hollow eyes staring into the night. As they entered the asylum, the temperature dropped sharply. The air was thick with the stench of mold and decay. The walls were covered in peeling paint, and the sound of dripping water echoed through the empty corridors. James felt a chill run down his spine. They moved deeper into the asylum, their footsteps echoing eerily. The wind howled through broken windows, creating a haunting melody. Suddenly, a door slammed shut behind them, making everyone jump. "It's just the wind," James said, trying to steady his voice. But then they heard it. A soft, low moan coming from somewhere deep within the asylum. The sound was unmistakably human, filled with pain and despair. The group exchanged nervous glances, fear beginning to take hold. James swallowed hard, his skepticism waning. They followed the sound to a long hallway lined with cell doors. The moaning grew louder, more anguished. One of the doors was ajar, and against his better judgment, James pushed it open. Inside, the room was dark, except for a faint, pulsing light in the corner. As they stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind them, locking them in. The light grew brighter, revealing the outline of a figure huddled in the corner. It was a patient, or what remained of one, gaunt, skeletal, with hollow eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. The patient's head snapped up, and it let out a blood-curdling scream. The group recoiled in horror as the figure began to move towards them, its limbs jerking unnaturally. The air was filled with the sound of tortured whispers, voices overlapping in a cacophony of madness. Panic set in as they realized the door wouldn't budge. The patient was getting closer, its eyes locked on James. He felt a wave of terror unlike anything he had ever experienced. The whispers grew louder, drilling into his mind, filling him with thoughts of despair and death. Desperate, James turned to face the others, but they were frozen in place, their eyes wide with terror. The patient was almost upon him, its skeletal hand reaching out. James felt a crushing weight on his chest, as if the air itself was trying to suffocate him. In a last-ditch effort, James closed his eyes and pushed with all his might against the door. It flew open, and they tumbled out into the hallway, gasping for breath. The patient's scream echoed behind them as they ran, the asylum seeming to close in around them. They reached the entrance, but the gate was no longer there, only a solid wall of stone. The asylum had trapped them, and the whispers began anew, echoing through the halls. James felt his sanity slipping away, the darkness consuming him as he realized there was no escape. The group scattered in a blind panic, each person hearing their name whispered from the shadows. James found himself alone in a small, windowless room. The walls began to close in, and the patient's voice echoed in his ears. "You'll never leave, James. You belong to us now." James screamed, pounding on the walls, but they continued to close in. His flashlight flickered, then died, leaving him in total darkness. The whispers filled the room, growing louder until they were the only sound he could hear. And then just as suddenly, everything went silent. The next morning, the townspeople found the asylum just as it had always been, silent, abandoned, and untouched. The thrill-seekers were never seen again, their fate a mystery. But at night, if you listen closely, you can still hear the whispers of Briarwood Asylum, calling out for more souls.